What do you guys love about playing D&D?
I just love the versatility of it. You can help you have friends that can do these kinds of things with you, or that can build friendships anyway.
Kind of the opposite of being on your phone?
I mean, it's more stimulating to your brain.
There's a lot of creativity and improv in it.
Hello and welcome to the Supercast. I'm your host, Superintendent Anthony Godfrey. It is a fast-growing club at Riverton High School where students are using their imagination, relying on teamwork, and increasing their storytelling skills in a unique way. On this episode of the Supercast, we meet members of the Dungeons & Dragons Club at Riverton High. It's a club where students are bonding over their love of exploring fantasy worlds, defeating evil creatures, and finding treasure in a game where critical thinking and creative minds are key to success. We're here at Riverton High School, after school, talking with members of the Dungeons & Dragons Club here. Introduce yourselves and tell me a little bit about yourself.
So I'm Ethan Sabin. I'm the president of the D&D Club here at Riverton High School. I don't know, I've been playing D&D for about a decade.
I'm Shadow Tillman. I'm also a member of D&D Club. Haven't been playing as long as he has, but still quite a while.
And tell me about the origins of the D&D Club. Has it been around for a while, or when did it start?
So I'd say that the D&D Club, as far as I know, it's been going on for a little while. However, the previous teacher that was supporting the club recently left and moved to, I believe, a job in BYU, Idaho, and so we had to find a new advisor, and it's almost like it restarted the club, but it's been going for a little while.
And for those who don't know about Dungeons & Dragons, explain what a role-playing game is and what Dungeons & Dragons involves specifically.
So D&D is a tabletop role-playing game where basically you create your own character, and it's very customizable from several different specifications and stuff, and you play your character running through a story, and you have a character or a person known as the Dungeon Master that writes the story and that controls fate and runs you through the story using the character you've created.
So they create the adventure, and then they guide you through the adventure, and one of the ways that fate or luck come into play is by using dice. So tell me how dice are the role that dice play, so to speak, in Dungeons & Dragons.
Dice, they're definitely a major role of D&D. You use them to create your abilities, scores, and the things that you use to determine how your character is what they are. And then you can also use them anytime that you want to make an ability check. So for example, anytime you're trying to track someone or scale a wall or shoot a bow, for example, you'd make an attack roll or a different roll with one of the dice, and if you roll low, you usually fail. If you roll high, then you might succeed.
And if you are a certain type of character, then you have certain abilities that make it more likely that you'll be successful trying something.
Like, for example, a fighter would be better at using a bow or a sword than, say, a wizard would. And so because they're proficient in these items, they gain pluses to their rolls. So, for example, if they rolled a 17, then they might have a +3, and so it'd be a 20 rather than just a 17.
So the +3 means because you're who you are, whatever damage you do, we're going to add to it just on the basis of the fact that you're a fighter as opposed to a wizard.
Yeah.
Okay, what you just described... Oh, Shadow, go ahead.
Additionally, those modifiers are decided by the rolls that you get at the beginning when you first make your character. So you might be like a fighter who's skilled at fighting, but about nothing else.
Yeah, and I think that's an important point, Shadow, is that you don't just get to decide at the beginning, well, I'm really good at this, and I'm really good at that, and I'm good at everything. You have to roll when you're creating the character to determine exactly what your strengths are. Is that still correct?
Yes.
I think that there are a little bit of things that you can choose. So, for example, when you're creating a character, you can choose what class you want to be, which is like the specialization, and then you can also choose which skills you're proficient in. So there is some choice to it, but there are other things that you have to roll for.
Just give me a general description of the club. I know there are lots of clubs here at Riverton. How many people are there? What are the officers, and how often do you meet?
So our club is one of the larger clubs at the school. We meet every single week on Mondays from 2:30 to 4. Our club has around 50 members. Not everyone comes every week, and some of the players do it on different days, but we've got around 37 or so active members. And in terms of leadership roles, it's really just president, and then we have a vice president this year. And it's an election basically at the beginning of the school year.
What do you guys love about playing D&D?
I just love the versatility of it. You can, obviously it's fun to play, but then it can also, it can help you have friends that can do these kinds of things with you, or that can build friendships anyway. And then you can also create stories. You can go through the stories with your friends. You can create your own character and stuff from scratch.
How about you, Shadow?
I would say that there's a lot of creativity and improv in it, so that there's never a time where you're feeling like bored or left out. Everyone's involved, or at least everyone's supposed to be.
Now, there are lots of worries these days about people not, and youth in particular, not interacting with each other, being on their phones, being on screens. This seems like a really good antidote to that. It's in person, there's a great connection with each other, high creativity, and like you said, Shadow, everyone's involved, everyone has a chance to interact. Would you agree that this is kind of the opposite of being on your phone?
Oh, for sure. It's more stimulating to your brain. You actually have to do some sort of problem-solving stuff. You have to be creative on some of the things that you have to do.
There's a lot of problems that will come up, and your goal is to just solve those problems. So there's a lot of puzzle solving and things that'll actually get you to think.
Tell me about the club. Does it make it easier to find people to play Dungeons & Dragons with, and do you have closer friendships as a result?
I think that in some ways it's easier to do it in a club, because when you're in a club, you basically make time to do it at a certain time every single week, and so it's more in a set time, and it makes it happen. Whereas if you sometimes just do it at your home with your friends just whenever you can, it generally gets put on the back burner and isn't really something that happens all that much.
Okay.
Also, the club makes it a lot easier to find a group. At least the way Ethan did it the first day made it easier.
What you just described is exactly what everyone is supposed to do, and that's set aside scheduled time to really do things that connect you with other people and really give you joy in your week. So I love that you've got this club going and that you found another advisor.
Get a 20.
10.
No, you get a 10.
So we're talking now with Mac, who is the advisor for Dungeons
Yes.
& Dragons. Tell me, how did they dragon you into doing this?
I don't know. Before this, didn't really play Dungeons and Dragons. I listened to a lot of podcasts and stuff about it, mostly for the comedy of it all.
Right.
And they somehow sensed that I'm a super nerd. And so they
Yes.
said, hey, we think you would have fun doing this. I was like, insulting, but yes, I would. Let's do it.
Nerd recognized nerd.
That's
you
exactly
know?
what happened. And what's funny is I had 3 different groups separate from each other without knowing that each other were coming to talk to me, come to ask if I would do it.
So you give off nerd energy in ways you didn't even realize.
Apparently. Yeah, I don't try.
Well, I love that you're helping support them. What have you noticed in the interactions? What do they seem to be getting out of being part of the D&D club?
A chance to be more social with people with a similar interest. It's the same as what some kids get for football or basketball. They're playing a game together with people who have the same interests. And so they come and they get in their separate groups and they play their campaign for an hour and a half, and they're just having a good time.
I think it's fantastic. And I love the level of creativity, the personal interaction, and really the engagement
Yes.
that pulls away from a lot of other things that try to get our attention these days.
Yeah, and I play too. When I'm here, I'm not just sitting off on the side. I'm in Ethan's campaign, and so I told him, like, if I'm going to be there, I'm going to play.
I love that.
And so, like, we're all just interacting, and the phones are away, which is awesome.
Yeah.
The computers are away, and we just have dice and a book.
Well, thank you for providing this for students. I think it's really fantastic.
Yep, it's provided entertainment for me as well, so it's been good.
Stay with us when we come back. More with the Riverton High School Dungeons and Dragons Club.
Never miss an episode of the Supercast by liking and subscribing on your favorite podcasting platform. Find transcripts for this episode and others at supercast.jordandistrict.org.
In Jordan School District, we like to support students in and outside the classroom, along with their families. That's where the Jordan Family Education Center comes in, offering support services and a wide variety of classes for students and their families free of charge. You can take a class called Blues Busters for children feeling sad or worried. Just Breathe is a class that helps students reduce stress. Or how about a class that supports parents in helping their children make and keep good friends? There are also support groups and free counseling, all provided by Jordan School District school psychologists and counselors. To find out how you can benefit from free family support services offered by the Jordan Family Education Center, call 801-565-7442 or visit guidance.jordandistrict.org.
You have a character sheet here. Okay.
Yeah,
Just as
that's
you
a bit
take
much
this
to-
out and unfold it, this honestly reminds me of the old character sheets. It really does. This is not far off. Okay,
definitely take
let's take a
inspiration
look. Let's take a look. So talk me through this character. Whose character is this? What's the name?
So one of my characters is running an artificer, a fairy, artificer for one of my campaigns that I'm running on Thursdays. So not for the club, but for something else.
So fairy is the race.
Fairy's the race, and
Artificer
artificer's
is
the class.
Okay, and
So
what
an-
does that mean if they're an artificer?
So an artificer is basically someone who imbues item with magic to just create magical items, and so they have a lot of versatility because of the different abilities that they can give to these items. And they're also spellcasters, so they can cast a lot of spells along with the magic that they're also using.
Now, explain to me, Shadow, how alignment works. Tell me about alignment. Now, it's interesting because lawful good, that combination, it's the same combination that was used back in the 1900s when I was playing D&D. And actually, back in the past, we used to think, oh, you know what, that person's kind of chaotic neutral. Anyway, in real life, sometimes you would assign alignment to people. Tell me about alignment. Describe how that works.
So alignment is basically the way your character reacts to things. There's two parts of alignment. There's good and evil. So good and evil is pretty self-explanatory. And then between all of those, there's neutral, where it doesn't really affect things all that much. Basically, you follow what you believe in for most neutral things, or like if you're lawful neutral, you're going to follow the law, but not really lean towards good or evil.
So it's a combination of either lawful or chaotic and good or evil, right?
Yeah, so there's
And then the neutral's thrown in there as well, just in case.
Yeah, so there's lawful, neutral, chaotic, then good, neutral, evil. And so you can have combinations such as like chaotic good, which might mean you do whatever it takes for the good. Whereas you might have one like a chaotic evil, chaotic evil where it's just you want to cause chaos and destruction. You might have something like lawful evil, which is kind of like politicians, really, where they're like staying within the laws for the most part, but not for good reasons.
I'm gonna leave that as your quote. But there is a tendency when you learn about these alignments to think about people in real life and think, are you chaotic neutral or chaotic good? So that's very interesting that it has stayed the same all these years. Pulling dice out of a case that is carefully organized with 4-sided, 8-sided, 6-sided. No, let's see.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, right. 6-sided, and then is that 12-sided?
So there's there's 2 10-sided dice, and they're
okay.
So one of them is just the 10-sided dice, which has 1 through 10.
Okay.
And then there's another one that has 10 through 100 in sets of 10s. So like 10, 20,
so
30.
if you're doing a percentage.
So percentage, yeah. So when you roll it that way, you could get, if you roll both of them together, you might get like 83 or 27 or numbers like
so
that.
one is the 10s and one is the 1s column.
Exactly, yeah.
I get it.
It's a way to roll anything from 1 to 100 without having a dice that has 100 sides.
Exactly, yeah.
And these are the 20-sided dice, my favorite.
Yeah, the most commonly used ones.
Yeah, the 20-sided is really something. And when you get a 20, it's weird holding I haven't rolled a 20-sided dice for a long time.
Very shorter time, so probably around 3 hours or 3.5 hours.
Okay, great. So if somebody wants to play Dungeons and Dragons, where do they start?
Our Riverton library has a copy of the Player's Handbook and a bunch of the different books. I would just recommend reading through the Player's Handbook to kind of get a bit of a grasp on the different rules and the different kinds of characters that you can create. And then after that, maybe go to your local game store. Like we've got one pretty close that does D&D, and you can find a group with maybe just your friends or some people that are already a part of those like clubs and stuff.
Yeah. Ethan, Shadow, thank you very much for talking with me. And if you ever need someone else on the campaign, let me know. I'll stop by and, I'm lawful good in alignment, so I'll be a real addition to the team. Thanks for joining us on another episode of the Supercast. Remember, education is the most important thing you'll do today. We'll see you out there.